As the region and the world await the Israeli response to Tehran, it is debatable within Israel whether what happened is an opportunity to attack and eliminate the Iranian nuclear program, or whether attacking nuclear facilities will not yield results. How does Israel plan to attack Iran? Would the attack target nuclear facilities? And how would that affect the region and the whole world? Welcome to In Depth. Well, welcome back. And while an Israeli attack on Iran is highly anticipated, it is very clear that there are divisions among the cabinet regarding how and when this attack would happen. In light of this, the Washington Post drew attention to the current dispute between Israel Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and Defense Minister Yoav Gallant that has become exposed over the last period. The newspaper also mentioned that Netanyahu is the one who cancelled Gallant's trip to the Pentagon, exposing tensions not just between the two governments, but also between Netanyahu and his own defense chief.
Following Iran's significant missile attack on Israel, the potential for an extensive regional war has intensified. Iran launched more than 200 ballistic missiles, most of which were intercepted by Israeli defenses, limiting the damage primarily to military and intelligence sites. This incident marks a major escalation in the ongoing Israel-Iran conflict, prompting speculation about Israel's next move, particularly regarding a potential attack on Iran's nuclear facilities. The Israeli government is actively discussing this option, with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu frequently raising the possibility. However, reports suggest that Israel may shift its focus from targeting Iran's nuclear sites to attacking military bases and intelligence installations, while the elimination of the Iranian nuclear threat remains a key objective. Current Israeli strategy prioritize defeating Hamas and Hezbollah. Leaders are cautious about escalating into a broader conflict with Iran, which could distract from addressing the immediate threats posed by Hamas and Hezbollah. Moreover, United States and Western officials recognize that Israel may lack the capability to independently destroy Iran's underground nuclear sites without American assistance. The complexities of such operations, coupled with the risk of escalating tensions, further complicate the situation. While neutralizing the Iranian nuclear threat is still a goal for Israeli leaders, the immediate military focus and the desire to avoid a broader regional war have shifted Israel's defense priorities.
Welcome back, and for more analysis, we're joined from Beirut by Mr. John Fagali, an international relations expert, and military expert Marcel Belougi. Good evening to you both, gentlemen.
يا مرحبا مساء الخير ازيك
How are you? Right.
مساء الخير مشي
Good to have you with us. And Mr. Fagali, how do you interpret the current sentiment within Israel regarding a response to Tehran's actions? And is there a political consensus that attacking nuclear sites would yield desirable results?
السؤال لإلي
I guess that this goes to you, Mr. Belougi.
Do you mean the Israeli response to Iran?
Yes, indeed.
نعم بالفعل.
إن الرد الصاروخي الإسرائيلي
The Israeli response is expected to be agreed upon, especially when President Biden agreed on this with Netanyahu yesterday. the goals are specific for the American auspices, because both of them, the American and the Israeli, both agreed on and not to escalate. However, they need missile control between both parties for restoring the dignity of Israel. So the possible response to Iran will target the Revolutionary Guard or some economic institutions and establishment or some military bases. It will not exceed this. The oil establishments will pose a danger to the prices of oil and will affect the presidential elections. As for the nuclear establishments, Israel will not be able to target them on its own. It needs destroyers like mega planes like 52. But Israel alone cannot target these establishments with great depth. Hence, the response will be reciprocated and within controls, while not causing too many damages. But it's to save the dignity of both parties.
Right, Mr. Balouji, how effective do you believe a military strike would be disturbing or disrupting Iran's nuclear ambitions?
We can think, it's early to think about these things. We are in the first phase of the response. Iran will try impose and improve its conditions, like Hezbollah in Hezbollah's arena and Jabalia also, and in other parts in Syria and Iraq and Yemen. So, yesterday, the Iranian Minister of Foreign Affairs was in Saudi Arabia, and he announced that he offers for peace. And 2 days ago, he visited Qatar and got $6 or $7 billion. And in Lebanon, the Minister of Foreign Affairs is condemning not the lack of implementation of 1701. Hence, Iran has double standards to protect its establishments from military strike. The qualitative missiles in Lebanon will only be used after the Israeli attack. Thus, the danger of escalation in the front in Lebanon and the rise of goals, because the goals will be qualitative with larger damages when the missile response is styled by Israel. I believe that there will be escalation in Gaza, Syria, and Lebanon, and some parts when the missile response will start. And based on the Iranian response, the path of the battle in the future will be determined in the Middle East. But I believe that there will be no expanded war or comprehensive war up till now.
Now, Mr. Balouji, let me here ask you and pinpoint our finger on some of the points that you spoke about. Now, from your point of view, what would be the broader implications for the region if Israel proceeds with a military attack on Iran, and how will that reflect on the whole region, particularly the already hard-hit areas like, for instance, Gaza and Lebanon?
Of course, the parts or the arms are linked to each other, are linked to the response of Iran. This is clear in Lebanon. The infrastructure of Hezbollah are destroyed. Their leaders are also killed, and there are also hacking in the communication. So it's a great hit that is very painful to Hezbollah, but the response of Hezbollah was not at up to the expected level to keep a parallel deterrent similar to Israel's. Israel is controlling by air and by continuous striking to the Lebanon front. Parallelly, they are sieging the borders of Lebanon. So the goals are being escalated, and the escalation is expected to increase, and it will be affected by the Iranian response. We are waiting the quality or the type of the Iranian response after the Israeli strike, and the Israeli strike will not be painful to Iran. This is clear from the statements of the Iranian officials and Netanyahu and yesterday's phone call. The battle will be equal at a certain level. The escalation of battles in Lebanon depends on the Iranian response.
Right. I guess we're joined now from Beirut by Mr. John Figali, the international relations expert. Mr. Figali, good to have you again, sir, with us. And can you explain the strategic rationale behind targeting military facilities or other strategic targets instead of nuclear ones in Israel's potential response? Why would be other areas, not the nuclear one?
Good evening, first of all. Thank you for having me. I believe in a way that ever since at least the nuclear deal of 2015 between Iran and the US, that the US and its allies are no longer seeking maybe a regime change, if you will, in Iran, rather than a change in the behavior of the regime. So the attack on military hardware and military facilities instead of nuclear facilities exemplifies that and embodies that point of view, that philosophy. So I think that Israel is reasserting this message to Iran. I think that a nuclear attack is not off the books for now. It's not off limits, especially since the rules of engagement are long gone by now. So I don't. We can't rule any possibility out. But for now, this is the let's say the winning scenario, for lack of a better term. So,
Mr. Figali, how does the U.S. administration's stance on this matter influence Israel's decision of attacking Iran's nuclear program so far?
Well, in order to get a clearer insight or a clearer view about the U.S. Policy in the region as a whole, and specifically in regarding Israel's actions towards Iran, I think we have to wait until the end of the U.S. elections. So right now, I think the U.S. Is preoccupied internally with the elections. Once a new president is elected, I think we'll get a clearer insight onto how things will be run in the region by the U.S. administration. But of course, and we've stated that before, that both candidates, whether Donald Trump or Kamala Harris, have stated that Israel's well-being and security is above all else. So whoever is president and whatever the outcome may be, any president will bear that idea in mind.
Back to you, Mr. Baluji, and do you think Israel sees this situation as an opportunity for addressing its concerns about Iran's nuclear program through a kind of legitimate retaliation narrative?
It's normal, the Israeli behaviors and its enthusiasm and encouraging the aggression, because the real controller of the battle is the United States. The United States now limit the Israeli aggression in a manner that wouldn't make the negotiations fail. An indicator to this, when Harris attended the phone call with President Biden, this is an indicator to a kind of response that saves the dignity while maintaining lack of escalation in a manner that wouldn't affect the American election. If Israel is responding in its own without the participation of the United States, so they wouldn't target the oil establishments, because in this case the oil prices will be affected and they will have to buy from Russia, which will enhance the purchase from Russia and the Ukrainian war. That's why it has to be a response that saves the dignity, and Iran has interacted with the American manner of response by air response by Israel. Iran also took the money and offered the peace, an initiative of peace. All of these actions are exchanged, calming of the matters. So it's definitely going to be a controlled and balanced response. It will be well studied. It will be followed also by a balanced and controlled Iranian response until the end of the elections. They will maintain lack of escalation.
Right, back to you, Mr. Faghani. And looking ahead, how do you foresee this situation evolving in the next few months? And what key developments should we watch for, or what should we be expecting?
I believe that the end result here is a new order. I think it's not merely a change of system or systems. It's a change of an order. It's a new Middle East, if we will. It's new Middle East pushed by the theory of constructive chaos that has been circulating around since 2006, and with Lebanon and Gaza being pressure points for this change, being catalysts for this change. I think that Israel, as well as its allies, the United States and Britain and the others, could redraw the map of the Middle East in accordance with their geostrategic needs and objectives. And I believe the end result is just that, mainly so.
Right. Mr. Balouji, in your assessments, what are the potential regional repercussions if Israel decides to strike Iranian nuclear facilities?
First of all, the party is paying the bill of missile exchange between Israel and Iran. The party didn't follow a strategic response using the missiles. Hence, lack of response will escalate the situation. It will affect the incubating environment of Hezbollah. It will open the room for Israeli control in Lebanon. They will continue to work on breaking Hezbollah. And as for the repercussions on the whole region, this operation is agreed upon by the Americans, Israelis, and the West. And the one in the front is the Israel. The American Navy in the sea controls the matter. It makes everyone in the world balanced and control, especially Iran and its arms, and Yemen and Iraq. All the parties now are reconsidering their calculations. Now they are making sure of the situation, because they will be the first to pay the bill even before Iran, when the situation is very escalated and when the economic establishments are hit. Iran will make concessions. So definitely when the establishments, the nuclear establishments are hit, Iran will be submissive to the conditions, and this is required in the new Middle East. Iran's submissiveness is required, but it will not be totally broken, because the United States needs Iran
ضبطها ولكن مش مضروب إنهاء.
because it's required to control Iran, not to be broken. So it's ready for the future projects when they are needed. That's why Iran will be obedient. It's a priority to be submissive to the agreement imposed on it by the United States and Israel. The new Middle East will be handled according to the agreement between all the arms. Everyone will be affected by the funding and the political and military existence.
Right. Back to you, Mr. Fagali, and here Mr. Baluji spoke about the U.S. role. And as we speak about the U.S. role, then it is important to speak about this report by the Washington Post, which spoke about this very particular piece of news that the Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu was the one behind the cancellation of his defense minister's visit to the United States, suggesting potentials of tensions not just between both governments but also internally. So what's your take on that?
Perhaps the tensions are more on a tactical standpoint, tactical point of view, but I think the strategy for now has been long implemented, especially in Gaza and Lebanon. Of course, the tactics once they will involve Iran are going to differ, are going to be at a bigger scale. That's obvious. That's normal. That's evident, and I think that for now, we have to wait and see. We have to see what the future holds. The U.S. remains Israel's #1 ally and will remain for the foreseeable future. I don't see that ever changing despite the current disagreements. And as far as Israel is concerned, I believe that they have achieved a significant portion of their strategy in the region, and they have gotten what they want significantly out of the region. So I don't think that these tensions, these frictions could be any bigger. So that's what.
Yes, Mr. Baluji, let me here reiterate the question again in another way. What could be the reasons behind the cancellation, or though we don't know if it was really as reported by the Washington Post that Mr. Netanyahu was behind the cancellation, but what could be the real reason behind this cancellation, and how will that reflect on the upcoming stage of negotiations between both governments?
إلغاء ماذا؟ إلغاء ماذا إذا سيد؟
Cancellation of what, ma'am? Cancellation of what?
The cancellation of Gallant's visit to the United States to meet with Lloyd Austin, the U.S. Defense Minister.
عند اتصال الرؤساء
When presidents call each other or communicate with each other, the issue was solved because the visit of the Minister of Defense was to put controls on Netanyahu's government. This is what the cause of the visit, and when both parties called each other, the issue was solved because it had a political target. Despite the agreement of Israel with America, but Israel goes out of control. They exaggerate in the reaction and the response. Hence, Israel's response is always exaggerated. So, cancellation of the visit and not receiving the Minister of Defense in the channels was not something accepted by America. As for Gaza, they are not able to do anything. As for Yemen's situation, is also considered to provide some missiles and some help. I think Syria will also participate in the battle. I think Lebanon will be the most affected one
Right.
in this battle,
Yes,
just
right.
like Iran.
Right, we'll have to wait and see the upcoming stage and what will be unfold. That was Mr. John Figali, the international relations expert and military expert, Mr. Marcel Balougi from Beirut. Thank you very much for your insightful analysis, and I guess that brings us to the end of today's episode of In Depth. Stay tuned for the upcoming episodes on Qnews. Many thanks for watching.